Yeah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. This is Ahmed Manjan here, hosting Gambia Diaspora Cleanup Day panel discussion. And my guest today, Famara, Dr. Famara NK, Famara N. Dampha, Omar Malmo Jr., and Omar AJ Sao. It's not always you have these great minds together on the same panel, so this it's massive already. So, Dr. Famara Dampha, welcome to this panel discussion about Diaspora Cleanup Day, which is scheduled to take place on the 23rd of this month, a week today, exactly a week today, if I'm right. We'll give details. But first, I want you to introduce yourself to our new viewers, even though you are no strangers. But still, we might have some new viewers who know who is talking. So, Famara Dampha, we'll start with you, then Omar Sao, then we'll go to Malmo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manjang, and thank you to the GunjurOnline crew for having us this morning here and afternoon in Gambia. Yes, I am Famara Dampha. I'm currently a consultant with the World Bank. I was a student here in Minnesota, University of Minnesota. I completed my PhD, so right now I'm serving as a World Bank consultant, working with the World Bank UNHCR Joint Data Center on Forced Displacement, which is stationed in Copenhagen, but I'm working remotely from Minneapolis. So I will thank everybody for joining us. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much, Omar, for Famara, for that brief introduction. Omar Sao, if you might introduce yourself to our audience.
All right, my name is Omar AJ Saho from GunjurOnline Gambia, presently based in Washington, Seattle. I have a master's in environmental science and as well as master's in sustainable international development. Right now, I work for a small non-profit organization in Seattle, Washington, whereby I'm one of the main policy advisors to the agency and as well as helping draft some policy paperwork for Washington State Department of Health and Social Service. I work with people who have like departmental stability to help shape all the policy narratives for non-profit organizations operating in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, thank you very much, Omar Sao. So we go to Omar Malmo Jr. If you might introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. I am happy to join this conversation again. My name is Omar Malmo Sambu. I am a lecturer at the University of the Gambia and as well the coordinator of the undergraduate program in environmental sciences and currently a PhD student in environmental sciences and natural resources management and development at the University of Brawijaya in Indonesia. So yeah, we've been into this for quite some time. So we are people who very much concerned about our environment and its well-being. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omar. So, before wasting any time, I want to call on Famara Dampha to introduce this program. What they mean when you say Diaspora Cleanup Day, you know, how the idea come about and also what you're trying to achieve by calling Gambians to come out, and also the location and the programs.
Okay, well, thank you. So yeah, the event that will be sort of the theme of this conversation is what we call the Gam-Diaspora Cleanup Day or cleansing exercise. Either way works. The idea came about. I'm actually, I think in my introduction, I should have said that I'm actually the founding executive director for the Household Disaster Resilience Project. And again, the inspiration of founding this organization came from my background working with the National Disaster Management Agency. While on studies, I realized that I'm far from home and I can't influence agency policies and actions the way I would have. So I thought maybe as part of my contribution, I can just come up with a nonprofit and work with young people who are interested in the same kind of issues. So we have also been, we have a sister organization in the country, which is also a global movement. It's called Let's Do It Gambia. Let's Do It movement started way back about 10 years ago, and now it's a global movement. So they do cleansing exercises regularly at country level, but once every year there is a global World Cleanup Day that comes about. Now, we've been hosting the World Cleanup Day for about 2 years now in the Gambia. And besides, like I said, we also do regular environmental cleansing exercises across different areas, communities, particularly in the Greater Banjul area, and of course, including the West Coast region. So this time we have something that is new. It is a new flagship program. We call it Gam-Diaspora Cleanup Day, simply because we thought the work that we've been doing in the country has been inspiring our brothers and sisters living in the diaspora. And we all know that in the Gambia, December, January is perhaps the best time to have more Gambians on holiday makers, Gambians based in the diaspora. Many of them are in the Gambia right now. If not COVID, we would have more people in the Gambia. So we are targeting our brothers and sisters from the diaspora who have been seeing these things on social media. Some of them have been like, "Oh, Famara, you guys are doing great." So I'm like, this time it's an opportunity for you to join our volunteers on the ground to create this environment. This is not just a cleansing exercise, but this is an environment to create collaboration, sharing of innovative ideas, and also an environment to network amongst Gambians. There is a lot of potential for Gambians in the diaspora and Gambians at home to inspire and learn a lot from each other. So we thought that this creates that enabling environment for all of us. And we know that is COVID. COVID is still a public health threat, but I mean, we'll follow the WHO and the ministry's guidelines. So we will be having this event specifically next Saturday, so on the 23rd of January, so a week from today. The event will be hosted by the Kanifi municipality. Our last event was in the greater in the West Coast region, so this time we're in the Kanifi municipality, and then we will be cleaning the Westfield area, so from Westfield all the way to the Jimpex area. So again, it also creates this environment for us to go and burn some calories, like I call it, and maybe also get some exercise done. COVID has been very stressful for many of us, so I think this is it's definitely an opportunity for that. But again, the broader discussion today, we will talk about others. My colleagues will help me to discuss this more from an environmental lens, but also from a policy lens and from an advocacy lens. And we want to enrich this conversation to really talk about the impacts, the causes, and how we can avoid this littering on our street or in the streets, and the dumping of waste into our marine ecosystems and stuff like that. So it should be a broader conversation, because I think we have an hour or so to discuss this thing at length. So that will be the introduction for now. Thank you, Mr. Mani. Thank you for joining the two Omars.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was moved. Just one more question. Why Westfield to Jimpex? Because if you look at it, this is probably the cleanest part of Serekunda now, because the councillor is doing a good job there. He's beautifying the area. Why not between Tipagaras and Westfield? Why this?
It is a decision that was made by the planning committee, and you're right. We had this conversation, and many people thought that, well, maybe we should go to some other places, So I think that because this is our first cleansing exercise of this nature, we are trying to not only do the exercise, but we also want to bring the attention of the public that this year, if we can do something of this nature to a magnitude that we have a bigger participation from the public, next year we would have a massive one that will be publicized to our colleagues from the diaspora and everybody in the Gambia. So you're definitely right that perhaps the destination selected for this exercise is not the most elite or the best place perhaps to do it. But as a new program, as a pilot program, we want to see whether the brothers from the diaspora will join in the first place. We hope they will. So I think there's an advocacy point of it. There is also the publicity aspect of it, and there is also the access point of it, that we don't want to go somewhere that would not be visible to the public. So again, we apologize if they think that the destination selected is perhaps not the best, but it still creates the awareness. We could have just done a march past, but again, we will be doing the actual work and also creating a campaign of that nature, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you very much, Famara. So it's like you're trying to get the senators involved in something productive, but at the same time for publicity. To keep our cities clean is a collective responsibility, and we know also the semesters, they tend to buy more than the average Gambian, so they litter more than average Gambians. But yeah, I believe this will give maximum exposure, and also to remind Gambians that cleanliness is an everyday thing. Omar Malmo, you are in the Gambia. What do you think the impact of this event will have on the psyche of Gambians in the diaspora, also on the ground?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Manja. You know, I think we would often say cleanliness is next to godliness, and the diaspora contribution to the socioeconomic advancement of the Gambia, both in remittances and as well, you know, their commitment to see, you know, a strengthened democracy in the Gambia, and you know, their contribution in all sectors is quite something that is visible to everyone. As well, you know, these are people who are contributing significantly to the well-being of the Gambians living in the Gambia. So it is important that, you know, we involve them in every aspect of development initiatives, and issues of the environment cannot be left behind. So I think this is a great initiative that is really geared towards, you know, focusing the minds on what is important and what needs to be done and what we need to really focus on, and then bringing in the diaspora as well will contribute significantly in terms of bringing more participants, or focusing the minds of a lot of our greater Gambian populace to the environmental concerns of our country, more so, you know, in the urban environment where, you know, waste and waste management is becoming, you know, a greater concern, because the challenges of waste and waste management in the areas of Kanefi municipality and the Brikama area council and so on is becoming really alarming. So therefore, this is a very, very good initiative, and then it's worth commendation. However, I think, you know, the site chosen for it would definitely do, simply because this is a place where a lot of movement is around, and then it is important that the minds of the people are, you know, redirected to their environmental responsibilities. So it is everybody's responsibility to ensure that our environment is clean, and it is everybody's responsibility to abide by the anti-littering regulation. So for me, I think it is important that people understand that not everything that comes from Jammeh was bad, because the settled thing is something which was very good, and it was contributing significantly to our, you know, waste management issues within our societies. Because the poor, you don't expect somebody to leave Tabokoto to go all the way to Bakote dump site to just dump, you know, little waste. So the settle, the monthly settle was actually contributing to the cleanliness of our society. So these are things that we need to think of how to revive them. So I think involving the diaspora will definitely help to a great deal, you know, in changing the mindset and, of course, attitude in terms of how we go about managing waste and how we just throw trash everywhere. As well, this could help us as a team to develop certain documents to influence policy, because you cannot just put in regulations and say, okay, this is forbidden, but yet you do not provide the people with alternatives. Like, you would understand, you can walk from Tabokoto all the way down to Westfield without seeing, you know, bins on the highway or something. You can have trash and then you have to put it in your bag. So these are things that we definitely need to look into, that if you tell people don't do this, you should be able to provide them with alternatives to ensure that they are not, you know, in tight situations. So I think waste and waste management is a key concern, more so in the Kanefi municipal area, and therefore the involvement of diaspora in every aspect of development is very essential. So I give a great commendation to this day coming, and I hope that everybody would be there, and the Gambia really needs it.
Sorry, Omar, before I go to Omar Sao, do you think, well, you mentioned about some of the good issues Yaya Jammeh introduced, and they cannot all be discarded, and Setseta was one of them. So you think by involving the diaspora and also the media, you think the government might rethink about introducing that Setseta on Saturday or any other day,
It might
probably
not be,
weekends, for us to start,
every
because that was definitely a good thing.
yeah, everything starts from somewhere, because I think we need to reinvent the wheel, and as well to recommunicate and resensitize our people on the need for cleanliness, and to ensure that our societies are quite free from those kind of pollutants and, of course, nuisances in our society. So this is more or less going to reinvent that wheel and to start to recommunicate to the minds that this is very necessary and this is very important in our society. And of course, our populations are increasing exponentially, and then there is a lot of rural-urban drift, and we know that the waste generation potential in most of these urban areas are increasing. Therefore, there is more need for waste management, and there are more challenges of waste management in those cities. So therefore, there is a need that we relook at, some of those activities like the set settle. So this is just a starting point, and of course, the more we enlighten the people, the more people get to understand their environmental responsibilities. Then there will be a collective need that we really, go towards government, ask for what needs to be done. And if a responsible government is in place, then seeing these things happening, they should understand that there is something that we need to do that we are not doing. Therefore, they will, rise up to their responsibilities, because some of these things we expect policy to address them, and as well government and the government machineries within the environment sector to help us implement those things so that we can live in a better society. The Gambia is getting filthier by the day, and of course, the attitudes are not really changing towards waste and waste management, even though we have regulations that we are not implementing. So there is a need to relook at those, and we think that with this, it could definitely focus the minds on what is relevant.
Yeah, thank you very much, Omar, as usual. Very brilliant contribution. Omar Sao, are you aware solid waste management is a serious, serious challenge in the Gambia? What do you think this massive contribution by the Gam-Diaspora will have on the issue of waste management in the Gambia?
Well, the problem goes far beyond the Gambia. This is a major challenge in many developing countries, not only in the Gambia. Solid waste mismanagement is a major concern in many parts of the world. So having the local-based Gambian citizenry and as well as the diaspora community coming together to clean the Westfield Gimpex area is a milestone development. If you look at it from a social responsibility point of view, Gambians living in the Gambia can't do it alone. So if you have somebody who is based outside the country and they're on a vacation in the Gambia, it is very, very important for them to also participate in cleaning the Gambia, their own country, their own environment, on their own locality. In the simple sense that, it's not only about a responsibility to code that, what, you're in the Gambia, you have to go and then, have that hands-on experience cleaning your own country or to clean your own community. No, it's about a fun activity that is trying to promote that social cohesion, that social interaction between the diaspora community and as well as the local Gambians who are based in the country. Because we believe that, yes, not only this specific day of January on the 23rd, you go out into the community to do that cleaning exercise. No, we are trying to look at this thing from a broad perspective, a holistic perspective, which we are trying to promote and foster environment awareness, environmental education among the Gambian population. We are trying to have that collective responsibility whereby the Gambian mindset will change towards cleaning their own environment. We are trying to minimize the rate of open dumping. We are trying to minimize the rate of open burning, because all of those things goes with severe environmental contaminations. They goes with polluting our marine ecosystem. It goes with contaminating the soil system. It also goes with contaminating the waterways. Because once you dump a solid waste, that one is gonna decompose. You don't know the chemical component in that decomposition process. If you bought something been in the plastic bag, you don't know where the plastic bag is gonna end. If you bought a plastic bottle, the single-use plastic bottles, you don't know where they're gonna end in their life cycle. So if we are in the Gambia, we are trying to call your assistant, we are trying to call your corporation, we are trying to at least buy into at least that 3, 4, 5 hours of your day on January 23rd to come down, join folks who are down there, who are at the forefront of trying to promote environmental awareness, who are down there, who want to make Gambia look like the smiling coast of West Africa in terms of tourism. We are down there to support your corporation in trying to like, empower, facilitate, and as well as encourage the local folks who are in the Gambia to be at the forefront of like cleaning their environment. So it's like a collective responsibility of keeping the Gambia clean. Yes, there might be some policy shortages here and there. There might be like some sort of like blames here and there, but I think collectively we can do it. So we are trying to make that example January 23rd.
Yeah, it seems Ahmed is gone or something.
Yeah. Omar, you are flowing, so you keep going.
Right, because if you look at the issue of like open burning in the Gambia or open like dumping in the Gambia, it's a major problem. We have like issue of health standards in the Gambia trying to like have their own chimney wherever they burn their healthcare waste. But then you also have like municipal waste, like you have the KMC doing the solid waste collection in the Gambia. But how many households in the Gambia are able to have like, let's say, their compost bin, their general waste bin, and then their yard waste bins? In developed countries, this is not a major issue because you have every household subscribing for a waste collection, whereby the municipal or the county waste management team will go at least once a week to collect the general waste, the solid waste, and then the compost material for every household. But since in the Gambia we don't have that much an economic sort of like development where people are much affluent in terms of supporting that waste system in the country, then the citizens have to be at the forefront of collecting the waste, minimizing their waste disposal, and as well as be more responsible in terms of the way we try to like reuse or recycle, or the way we try to like dispose our waste, because this is very important. We don't want to contaminate our water system. We don't want to have like any disease or vectors, spirit of like infectious disease in our communities. And one way in which we can do that is trying to have everybody's hands on the desk to clean our environment.
Yeah, thank you very much, Omar. I'm coming back to the main man of the show, Dr. Dampha. You are unmuted, so in case when you are responding, you put it back on. Yeah, you can have lot of different intervention. Why do you specifically choose cleanup day instead of other environmental intervention? And also, what the kind of message you want to send to Gambians or the diaspora, by this intervention?
Thank you, Anja. So there could be a lot of different things we could do with the diaspora. We could do a conference. We could do a planting exercise. We could do different types of environmental related issues. We chose cleanup because waste is a global problem, and it is becoming one of the biggest problems in developing countries, especially in the urban setting. Now, just like Omar said, we have seen a massive rural urban migration to the urban center of the country. We have about 60% of the Gambia's population living in a very small area. Now, what that means is that naturally, as human beings, we have this byproduct that is called waste. When you develop, there is this byproduct that is called waste, right? So, in other words, we say waste is a byproduct of progress and development because of the usage of all of the things that we need, right? That's why we're generating waste. And unfortunately, just globally and more so in developing countries, we still live in a linear economy, which is an economy where you take something, a natural resource or a resource, you make it, you use it, and you dispose it. And that linear model has not been working because it is leading to a massive waste into the environment. There is no way we try to reuse or recycle this waste, especially in the Gambia. We don't have the capacity to do that. Even when we collect the waste, the disposal of the waste becomes a problem, right? The site where we should put this waste becomes a problem. So we think that there is a big public awareness that needs to be created with the government taking the lead to understand that waste is a serious problem in our urban areas, and we need a multi-stakeholder approach. That is one of the themes that we use to sell this idea, is that this has to be a multi-stakeholder idea or a multi-stakeholder partnership between the central government, the private sector, the civil society, and even the diplomatic organizations or diplomatic groups in the country. And what we want this program to bring out is to have this unique participation of heads of our government institutions. If the mayor or somebody listening and can communicate this to the mayor, we want the mayor of KMC to be part of this exercise. In fact, we wrote to the office of the president. If possible, if the president can come out, that would be great. But if the president can't, we are hoping that the ministers will join us. All ministers have been written to, including the Minister of Environment. Now, our politicians should understand. I know that we're in a political arena right now. The political climate is tough and all that. And this, we are a non-partisan organization, so we're not into politics of this. But we're into the development and to influence policy. Because if we can have the participation of all the ministers, often we call on the environment minister. But at cabinet, the environment minister needs to hear from other ministers, and therefore for those ministers to understand these issues and also be participating. It also gives them first-hand information that, okay, this is not just about the environment minister, this is about all of us, because environment is the founding block of development of any nation. Talk to the Minister of Health. He will tell you how important public health is in terms of environmental sanitation and cleanliness and all of that. Right? You talk to the Minister of Roads or Construction. He will tell you how littered our streets are and all of that, or our roads are. So I think that this is something that requires everybody to come. So please, 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 honorable ministers, honorable heads of our civil society organizations, diplomatic corps, managing directors of private sector organizations, we're calling on everybody. And to be honest, we've seen to the end of this last week or to this past week, we've seen some of these institutions calling on us to say that, you know, they would love to participate or partner with us. To the extent possible, we want to have everybody to come out and participate in this event. I think that is one thing that I want to emphasize today. We can go into the academics and the debates about the implications of what this means, but I just want to really anchor the point that we need the people, the politicians, the head of institutions to support this event and to come out and participate. And you know, Mr. Manja, one thing that is really flabbergasting to me is that in the Gambia, it's very strange that we have young Gambians who are not employed by government, right? Gambians who are just students and stuff like that, you know, they're not, most of them are not employed, right? They are using their own resources. In fact, to some extent, buy their own t-shirts to come and participate in this event. Yet, the government officials, our civil and public servants, you barely see them in this exercise. Like, why? I can't understand. Now, these are public officials that are paid by taxpayers' dollars. So why can't we have them? I mean, just to have a government vehicle and attend all these conferences and do all these travels, that's not enough of a job that you can do for your country. So to our colleagues working with the government, we're calling you to please come and join the volunteers. The volunteerism doesn't mean that if you are unemployed in the Gambia, that's the time you are a volunteer. And that is sort of what I see. Those who are unemployed, the students are the ones who are the volunteers. What is wrong for civil servants or public officials to come and volunteer? The diaspora, you have a critical role. You've been always playing a critical role. So again, while you are in the country making, having holidays or, whatever you're doing, we want you to also come out and join these things because, there is, like I said, there are many benefits we can tap from this exercise, not just cleaning the environment, but there are other aspects to the partnership, the collaboration, and the networking that it brings. So I'll stop there. And I think at some point I want to come back also to talk about the anti-littering law, because I think that's another essential policy that has to be implemented. Like Omar said, we have this since 2007 and we're not implementing it. So why are we not implementing it? We could generate revenue. We could change public opinion, public attitudes and public behavior by actually implementing this policy. And what it does is that it generates revenue for the agency. We can use that revenue to do more cleansing exercises, right? So I think that there is a need to really go and go on in implementing that policy. But I also got information that the NEA is coming up with something similar to the SETSETAR. Maybe they may not call it the SETSETAR, but something around that may be coming soon. So we hope that comes out very quickly. Thank you. I will stop there. I don't want to check. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doc. I'm going to Omar Malmo, Junior. Omar, when these solid waste are picked, there's high probability they will end up at Bakote dump site. And we know there are issues there. There are schools, this is in a build-up area. And also, last time I checked, there is no facility in place that will recycle or, safely dispose of these dump sites. What do you think the government can do to make sure that that menace is taken care of? Or what do you think the diaspora can do, to help maybe start a conversation or even, bringing up a solution to make sure we have a final solution to the issue of backward dump site and also the dump site across the country,
Thank you very much. I think that's more academic than than the conversation. But yes, let me just try to put it this way: the Gambia has within the populous environments or the urban areas 3 major dump sites, and that is the one in Mile 2, Bakote, and the one in Tambana in Brikama. Now, you can realize that the population centered around that area is over 60% of the total population of the Gambia. And that we would say is almost about 1.2 or 1.1 million people. And all of these people are generating waste. And this waste would definitely finally get to that final disposal site, either in Bakote or either in the wetland complex, which is in Banjul or in Tambana. Now, Tambana is fast becoming a residential area. Bakote is already in the middle of town. And as well, the one around Mile 2 is just within the wetland complex. So none of these 3 dump sites is strategically positioned. That means all of them definitely are in a position where they're supposed not to be. Now, how do we solve this problem? That becomes the million-dollar question. Now, I think modern day technologies in waste management would be something that we could definitely employ. But the Gambia does not have the financial capacity, and we are still using fossil fuel to actually, generate electricity. Now, how do we go about building up big incinerators and so on? That might be too expensive for a government to do. But I think temporarily, what the government can do is to basically, like Famara said, is to have that, collectivism of getting all these institutions to work, in a collective way, that they all take their responsibilities and all become stakeholders to work in the way they could actually manage our waste in an efficient and more manageable way. So we think we need integration of institutions to see these problems as a collective problem from the NEA, from the ministry, from the local councils, and as well either from a disaster point of view, and as well from other agencies. Basically, why I'm saying this is, if you go down to Talinding area where we have floods. Now, in one of the videos I did watch was that people were complaining that people are dumping waste on the waterways. And as this continues, then there is a blockage on the waterways, and then the water actually, when there is high rainfall, it actually bounces back into people's houses, leading to some flash floods in those communities. So waste problem is not just about the nuisance or the final dump site or the burning, but it could even lead to some of these disasters that we are experiencing in our communities, because this is what the communities are actually complaining about: people dumping waste on the waterways. So what we can do generally is basically to look and redesign. I think the general problem in the Gambia is that we had a physical planning problem, and to correct that, it will take time. But what we can do is integration of efforts, and of course, institutions coming together to integrate and to see how best they can collectively deal with these issues by either relocating some of those dump sites. But where to relocate them? Combo, it is obvious to you and I that, Bangkok cannot yet. So what can we do? So that becomes a bigger problem. But this takes a lot of experts to come together to see how to get a better solution for it. But in my own opinion, I think what we can do is to integrate institutions to work effectively and efficiently in terms of waste and waste management. But attitude matters a lot in waste management. No matter how you have the good facilities and all that, if the attitudes did not change, there is nothing, or there is very little impact you can do.
So I think this is where the contribution of diaspora would come in, you know. Semester la influence ka warabakele. So it's important when these people come down, they're able to pull 2, 3, and then that could definitely change the mindset, that could bring in more people, and of course that could, you know, bring about positive change in our society. So I think generally, you know, 3 of those dump sites need to be rechecked, and of course there needs a relocation. But to where? This becomes $1 million question. But as well, we need to build up to a level that we get to, you know, modern day technologies in terms of waste and waste management, which might be very expensive, but they are very much worthwhile for the Gambia. Thank you.
Yeah, Omar, thank you very much. How I hope we can have your kind in our parliaments or in the cabinets, because I will see some real thing happening. Omar, Famara talk about the legislation, the laws. You know, we have regulations, but they're not been implemented or properly implemented. So what do you think we can do as a country to make sure that these laws are enforced? You know, you are muted, huh? Did a microphone on the mute? Yeah.
Right. There's one major concern here that I usually have with policies. Most of the time, it's like you cannot only draft a policy without not looking at, like, you know, the enforcement aspect of that one, without not looking at the implementation aspect of that one, without not making your baseline investigations, your examinations, your assessments about who are going to be the beneficiaries, or who is this laws directed to, and how are they going to absorb or filter in those particular laws and policies. Yes, we have anti-literary laws in the Gambia, trying to control the amount of literacy we have in the Gambia. But then, do you look at the issue of disparity? Do you look at how many people can comply to these issues? Do you look at the awareness program of those laws in the Gambia? Do people understand about the importance of implementing, or, you know, be that much responsible towards adhering to those anti-literary laws in the country? This is reality. Yes, you have the law that you want to minimize the literacy in the country, yes. But how many people in the Gambia can be able to at least gather their waste? Do they have the recycled bins to do that? If they have the recycled bins, do they have effective transportation to transport the waste from their households to the dumping site or the landfill? If we have all those things down there, do we have effective management of those landfills to recycle those waste? So this is where the policy have to look at all those different angles, all those different stages. Yes, leader is not good, but those Gambian people have that mindset. Do they know about that, you know, importance of not disposing their waste into the gutters or into the waterways? Do they know the importance of, you know, not doing open burning of those waste? So it also goes down to, like, environmental education, environmental awareness, making people aware about those laws, those regulations, those policies, so they can adhere to those policies. And if you have those policies that are enacted, the implementation aspects are supposed to go with responsibility from the government side. Yes, even though in developed countries we have, like, you know, agencies who are trying to support the governments or the county government, trying to collect the waste, transport them to the landfill or the solid waste management sites, the citizens are aware, they have that importance that, you know what, hey, we cannot keep our waste anyhow we want it, because it's going to rot in our backyard. That is going to be a visual show. It's not going to be very good for our eyesight. It's not going to be very good for our health, because they're not that important. It's going to be very important. We have this program in our school systems whereby Gambian people, young as 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, before they even go to elementary school, they know the importance of proper waste management. They know the potential health hazards of poor solid waste management. That way, once we enact these policies, people who are going to be, like, going down to our high school system, our university systems, our college system, once we finish those things, we become, like, you know, responsible citizens. We will know that, yes, it's our responsibility to control, to collect, and effectively manage our waste, because it's my own responsibility for my own health. And that will bring also, like, what is the budget allocated by our government in terms of promoting sanitation in the country, in terms of empowering the institutions that are trying to control litter in the country. Because all of this is interconnected. Once there's proper waste management in the country, once there's proper hygiene and sanitation in the country, that is going to minimize the rate of people who are infected by pathogens, by diseases causing vectors or other, you know, potential hazardous materials that people got in the country. So yes, we can have the anti-litter law in the Gambia, but then it's also very important. We look at the issue of disparity. We look at the issue of, like, awareness. We look at the issue of resources availability for the people to comply to those laws in the country. And to address that situation, we need more of like an environmental education. We need more of a resource allocation to the institutions that are trying to work on this particular domain.
So, Omar, you effectively saying to change, we need mindset change, and to do that, we need to probably introduce these solid waste management in our school curriculum or university syllabus, whatever. Again, about this legislation, Famara, you mentioned this before that you're going to harp on it. What do you think we can do to make sure these laws are enforced and, in the Gambia? Because that's the problem. It's not only in the side of solid waste. We have the Forest Act, we have the National Environmental Name Act, but they are hardly enforced, So what can we do, to get it started? What can the diaspora do to make sure that these brilliant laws, if you read through them, they are very, very good laws, but they just gathering dust.
I'll frame it around the issue of sustainability and the issue of how we can do proper waste management and come down to the solution, in so to speak. So I'll start with now we know that waste comes in different forms, right? There are mainly we have degradable, biodegradable, and non-biodegradable waste. So we need to understand that not all waste is wasteful, right? What we call organic waste is a waste that we can use, we can compose it into manure and use it for horticultural gardens and for agricultural purposes, right? But that requires proper waste management, right? You need to make sure that you have a separate or a different bin to which you put this type of waste, right? Things that can be degradable. Now, those waste, they don't have that serious implication. That's why they are called biodegradable, because the environment can assimilate or control and actually consume this thing in a more useful way. But non-biodegradable or persistent waste is our waste that remains in the environment for a very, very long time, like plastic, for instance. Now we know, in fact, there are predictions that by 2030, we'll have more plastic in the oceans than fish. Can you imagine? That's disastrous, right? And these plastics are having serious implications on the marine ecosystem. They affect the dissolved oxygen in the water, and that affects the dissolved oxygen that is available for the marine species to rely on. Imagine living without oxygen. You will definitely die. So the dissolved oxygen in water is the stuff that living species in the water needs to survive. So we need to understand that. Now, when we look at the Gambia, for instance, we have fine policies. For instance, even our new climate change policy talks about polluter pays. And fine and beautiful ideas we put in these policy documents, right? Polluter pays. That is interesting. Polluter pays, how do we implement this thing? So why is waste a problem? Is simply because of the public nature, the public good nature of the problem we're looking at. It's a negative externality. The person who does the pollution is not paying for the cost of pollution. So therefore, they have no incentive to not pollute. So this is why if somebody is walking along the streets of Caraba Avenue, they just dump something because there is no cost to them. But they don't understand that there is cost to the environment, there is cost to the municipality. So this is the awareness that we need to create. And that is common with all public goods, right? Public goods, people don't care because it belongs to everybody, nobody cares. So the way to regulate it, you can regulate it through awareness creation, but you can also regulate it through regulations, right? So like, for instance, the anti-littering law, very fine regulation, talks about fines that individuals should pay, even if you urinate on the street. If you urinate on the street, you are caught, you should pay $250, right? If you do certain type of littering on the street, they can charge you for anything between $1,000 to $5,000. So imagine all the littering that is happening. If we try to monitor, even maybe prosecute few individuals, you'll see a change in behavior because people understand if I do this, they cut me, I'll have to pay maybe $3,000 or $5,000, right? So these regulations talk about these things, but we're not enforcing them, and I don't think it is difficult to enforce these things, right? and the awareness that can be created. The public, the civil society, for instance, I always say, we have a lot of resources in the Gambia and we don't tap into it. The volunteers we have, they're not asking for a lot. The volunteers even have to go to these institutions to beg them. We literally go and follow up on our letters and say, please, we're begging you, come out and support us. Why do we have to do that? You should be calling us as a resource, because just like you called on the World Bank, you called on the European Union to come and help you with financial resources. Development remember, it is not just about the financial capital you need. You also need the human capital. You need the natural capital. Now, all of these capitals, if you don't use the capitals in the way they should be used, you would not achieve your development. You can have all of the money, but it will be ineffective and inefficient the way you distribute and even spend the money. But we have a cost-effective way to spend this money, which literally means that we can tap into our own Gambian expertise. We have a lot of Gambians who can, even find better policies than we have. We have a lot of Gambians who can create more awareness. We don't need much. We just need the support. We need the institutional support and recognition. We need also the media like GunjurOnline. You guys are hosting us right now today. Perhaps a lot of Gambians will be listening to this program. That is also influencing behavioral change. So these are the issues that we need. Please, Gambia government, stop talking about we don't have resources. We have over 2 million people. Majority of our population, like we have a young full population that is actually unemployed, but it doesn't mean that it's just a wasteful opportunity, right? The unemployment rate in the country, because again, like I said, these young people, they are working for country. They're not working for self. But just support them with little resources and perhaps even give them some initial capital to start some private sector and activities or enterprises. For instance, around waste management, right? We can have youth-based companies who want to invest into waste management, collection of waste, and safe disposal of these things, right? And I think we have seen some private sector intervention in that area also. But again, to the Gambia's private sector, the banks, the GSM companies, right, the other private sector entities, please, let's fulfill our corporate social responsibility. I think that the private sector is earning a lot, and the support that the private sector is getting is coming from the public. And the private sector they should know that the clean environment, the enabling environment that is created because of the Gambia we have, because of the people, but also they should understand that they have a responsibility to also support initiatives like this. But hardly sometimes, Manjan, I will tell you how much our organization struggle. We struggle a lot to even get partnership, to even get them to recognize that we've sent them these letters, and even to get feedback on these letters is hard. And every time they go, they're like, we don't have money. We're not always asking for money. We are only asking, even if the head of the institution can come out and support us, that is enormous. That means a lot to the volunteers. It means a lot to the public. Imagine you are in a vehicle, going to Banjul, and then you saw the Minister of Environment trying to clean somewhere, or maybe some public officials trying to support some sort of cleansing exercise. That is the change that we need. It's the mentality of the people. But in the Gambia, if you say a minister should come out, they said, oh, minister? The minister is, as a minister, if I were a minister, I would be happy to do these things. I would be in all these activities. Whether it is about the environment or not, I will be in these things, because I know my presence is not just about, whatever, it's just about the influence. You are the minister. So I would end up talking about sustainability, right? We cannot attain sustainability when we ignore the capitals that we have. You cannot talk about GDP. Enough of your GDP metrics to tell us that our country is developing. We're not developing. Using the GDP, Gambia, if they go to National Assembly, they said the GDP is growing by 6% or whatever. It's not the reality of sustainability and human well-being in the country, right? My mother in the rural area doesn't understand what that GDP means. He doesn't even feel the impact of the GDP on her well-being, right? What we need to understand is that for well-being and for sustainability to be achieved, we need the human resource to be developed, the consciousness to be there. We also need the natural capital to be sustained. Like I always say, the Gambia has exhausted its biocapacity. The biocapacity is the stuff that we need for an average Gambian to live sustainably. We are in a deficit. We are ecologically deficit. not only financially deficit, but we have exhausted the resource in that country, whether it is the land, the fisheries resource, all of the resources that you can use. If you put them together, the average Gambian has exhausted what it can use to sustainably live. In other words, we are ecologically indebted and ecological debtors. We will be importing stuff from other countries that have the surplus of that, whether it is rice or it's some fishery stock or it's some sardines that they made, which actually was exploited from our waters. So we will continue to depend on the other countries. Look at the COVID-19, for example. It's just an example for us to understand that if we have global crisis like that, we as a country will suffer. Yesterday, I was watching the news and I understand that there is a poultry disease outbreak somewhere in Senegal. So perhaps the importation of chicken legs into the country will be banned, if not already banned. What does that mean for us? So if that continues, meaning that our people would not have the chicken that we all love, right? So we need to make sure that we reduce our ecological footprint, but also make sure that we maintain the biocapacity, capitalize on the resource that we have. We have a natural resource, we have the human resource. We may not have the financial resource, but our natural resource is enough to sustain us, and it is enough to be managed to regenerate itself to help us to live in a sustainable and a decent life, which is what well-being means. Well-being, enough of your GDP metrics or financial indicator of human well-being. Thank you.
Yeah, Famara, thank you very much. We still have about 7 minutes. So for the two Omars, this will be your final thought. Famara talked about a lot of issues, like the attitude of Gambians. It's a common saying, like the buck stop with the president. But if the buck stop with the president, I think the buck start with us. What, the kind of initiative individually we make to make sure that the changes we want to see is effected. It's a massive act. What do you think we can do as a nation to make sure that our Gambians take their individual responsibility seriously? Because if we all stop throwing waste, like you are in a car, be it public or private car, you have a waste in your car, you got it. When you go home, you put it where you keep your waste. This might not even be necessary, and we've seen that working very well in other countries. Even in those countries, there are controlled regulatory mechanisms in place. They have cameras everywhere. If you violate it, they can get to you. So, but what do you think we can do in Gambia to make sure that people actually take their individual responsibility towards environment and other issues?
All right, thank you very much.
Omar Malmo.
Oh, maybe I can go, or Mama can close.
Yeah, my own voice now coming in. Let me just get a go on. Yes, Ahmed. Basically, we have regulations, we have laws beautifully written, and Gambians are very good at writing stuff, which I am very much happy about. But I think to start with, we need to advocate for the National Environment Agency to be completely autonomous, to be free from political interference in their dealings and in their operations and in their regulation mechanism to ensure that people abide by the existing environmental laws of our country. How do we go about that? We must ensure that in the NEMA Act, all those powers given to the president as the chair of the National Environment Management Council and those folks, those ministerial capacities, actually scrap off and give it to the technocrats who know the field and understand what needs to be done. So for me, I think if NEA is giving that autonomy to operate independent of government and even having government on check, then our environment will be free from some of those abnormalities that we are challenged with. In terms of enforcement and regulation, look, you would see a police officer even urinating in this. This happened. Sorry, excuse my language. Sometimes these things happen. They don't understand and they don't know, some of them. So I think the important thing to do is to establish an environment unit within the police force. If you have an anti-crime unit, you have other units here and there. We need an environment unit. Actually, what we are advocating for is something we are serious about. Because our environment and natural resources are depleting at an exponential rate. And this is not good for this country. Like,
Famara already said, if you look at the carrying capacity of some of our societies and of course the ecological balances, we are running at a deficit. We are losing at a faster rate. But of course, the same Gambia, the permanent secretary will tell you we have enough in our water bodies that anybody can come and just as many as they want. So for me, I think two things should be done. The National Environment Agency need a complete autonomy, and as well, the police force need, that enforcement agency within the police itself by establishing, an environment unit within the sector. So with that, I think will definitely help in changing attitudes because people sometimes you cannot try to change their attitudes by being so nice to them. But unless and until they see some laws that are very punitive to some of their actions, then they could definitely change because there are existing laws that can be punitive and people can definitely be if you are found wanting in one way or the other. So long we do not have enough time. I thank you very much for that, and I would end it there. But those two things I highly would recommend the Gambia government to look into. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Omar, for that final talk. Now, Omar Sao, you have like in 2 minutes maximum. What can you add? What can we do either locally, nationally, to make sure Gambians take their individual responsibilities seriously, so that and also government, go to government level, because at the end of the day, the buck stops at them, but it starts with us. So if individually we take our responsibility, that will put more pressure, no doubt about that, on the government to also make sure the laws, are enforced. What's your final take on?
Well, my final take is since we are organizing this event, we are trying to do our local efforts to see Gambian people participating in this particular event. So locally, all what we can do is if you're a Gambian in the Gambia or you're a Gambian who is doing vacation in the Gambia at this moment, can you please come out on January the 23rd and then participate in the event? If you cannot make it up, can you please buy a t-shirt for somebody? Can you please pay a transportation fare for somebody? If you have a car, a truck that you have on that particular day, can you please come and support and cheer up this particular event? If you look at it from a national level, the World Bank and then the international aid organizations, now they are trying to support and promote local-led development policies, local-led development models. And in that particular way, they are giving you funding based on like local strategies you have at national level. So in that particular context, let the Gambia government also empower local-led initiatives that have been spearheaded by civil society organizations, that have been spearheaded by local community-based organizations, or even like a non-profit organization in the country. That way we can have a sustainable, robust way of development intervention in our countries. If you look at it from a policy perspective, let's have National Environment Agency trying to at least work with the police force. Let them also work with like an other sister forces in the Gambia for them at least see the regulations, the policies to these institutions. So that if a police officer sees somebody doing environmental pollution in the Gambia, they can be able to arrest you and give a citation of an environmental violation in which you have done or which you have committed. Let the fisheries, the KMC officers also work with the police, the immigration, and other organizations in the Gambia, so at least those people also can be equipped with the environmental policies we have, policies we have in the country, to be able to better effectively implement those policies in the country. So in a nutshell, we are here today for the environment, Gam-Diaspora environment cleanup exercise. So we are calling everyone to come and join this particular event, and from there, these discussions are going to keep going on, not only today, but in months and weeks to come.
Yeah, thank you very much, Omar. Famara, I'll come to you. You have 1 minute, but I'm going to be generous to you to do the final wrap up. But before that, I want to appeal to 4 of you and also the environmentalists listening to this program. This year is election year. There are a lot of political talk on the social media. As environmentalists, I think we also need to raise the volume so that we can force environmental issues into their policies and also into the psyche. Gambian, we make sure that the politicians are not only talking about environment, but they put it in their manifestos. So to do that, we also need to maintain a regular presence. We also capitalize on this because everybody there, I don't know, 16 political parties. So the competition have never been so high. So I don't think also environmental will have a better opportunity to make sure that the message we are trying to put across, get to these politicians and also registered in the psyche of the Gambians. So this is a good start. This is January election year, and this the Gam-Diaspora come up with this kind of programs. So we thank you for that. And as Umar said, I'm also appealing to entire country, Gambian ordinary citizens. If you can walk to these destination, please do. If you can't, find some friends and join a car, if you say from Gunjur, and take to this place. But even if you can't go, you can give fare somebody to go, or you can buy a broom for somebody, or you can buy a shovel for somebody. And if you are in the diaspora, you know that you wouldn't be in the Gambia around this time. Send money to your nephews, your nieces, to try and attend this program, or just buy t-shirts and give it to Gam-Diaspora, and they can distribute it to the cleaners. I have a comment from Famara Drame. Before I come to you, Famara, we need to push for national waste strategy, the concept of which has been already drafted by the NEA. That way, the councils and municipalities will be held accountable. I think that's a great point. So, Famara, you can dilate on that, and please also wrap up the program. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the panelists and also our esteemed viewers, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Toma Famara Drame. We miss you. You should have been here with us. Always nice to have Famara as well. I think on that point, I think we can only not wait any longer for the agency to have their national waste policy and include the new sectoral framework, whatever they're going to call it. I think that is welcome, and I think that I will close by saying, please, the emphasis is going to head of institutions. As a leader, we should try to lead by example. When we do cleansing exercises in the West Coast region, the CEO of the council always joins these activities and clean himself, the CEO. So please, to the head and directors of these departments and agencies, please join us. We're just begging, please come and join us. Just your participation means a lot to the public and to the volunteers. Donors, we need donors. We need donors, not just partners, but also come and donate things like t-shirts, like Omar said, face masks, and cleaning materials, gloves, and other things that the volunteers would need. Remember, we don't also want to put the volunteers at a public risk, because that is a COVID, and we know the transmission rate is increasing in the country. So be careful while you clean, and make sure that's why I think Westfield, the area, creates that environment for us to take the social distancing measure. So on that note, please, the diaspora, if you're not in the country, you're listening to us, please, send $50, $10, whatever, pounds, whatever it is, please support our efforts. We can do it. Everything we're doing it. We're using our own money, our own resources to do this. We don't have funding for this. No World Bank project is given to us to do this. So we can only count on individual support and institutional support. So we also want to thank the KMC. They've responded to our letter, and they will be supporting the initiative. NARI, that is the National Research Institute, Agricultural Research Institute. They also responded. We hope that they will also do something. And we will thank the civil society organization, Green Up Gambia, Ozone Heroes, Environment, Sustainability Ambassadors, all of the civil society organizations, whether I name you or not, my mind is on all of you. Please, thank you, and thanks for coming. And also, I want to end by thanking the two Omars. Thank you for this conversation. You really enriched the conversation, and let's keep doing the job. And finally, to GunjurOnline, I can be more grateful. Thank you for this platform, and I think that this platform is actually having influence. You're talking about the politics that is going on. We're now seeing a little bit of consciousness among the political parties to talk about the environment. I think the media will help us to strengthen that message, that when they're talking to you, you should be asking these questions about the environmental pollution, degradation, and all of the fisheries exploitations that is ongoing in the country. So on that note, I thank you all. I think this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you very much.
sponsor a Gambian girl through SAG Foundation. We are placing girls on the path to success through education. Our aim is to realize a Gambia where every girl is given equal access to education to reach their full potential. This is how we do it through our model of affecting generational systematic change. This is Amy. She is not in school, an underprivileged girl excluded from school due to lack of financial support. The SAG Foundation enrolled her into school, and she is equipped with all the essential resources to have a quality education. Amy is now making a difference in her community. Amy is now contributing towards the generational systematic change. Education changes everything for a girl.
Ethnic Isles, ethnicisles.com. Koko Ethnic Isles, di gan bu bees. Ethnic Isles, di website bu bees. Di boutique si biir internet. Ku leen ko isi di kali jabang jëmale ko si askani ak mbokki Sénégambia ak tunu Afrika. Ethnic Isles amal na leen bépp xeeti bagage yu demee ni ki si yére ak piisu rafet, bagage si lekka yu amul façon. boole si nag Ethnic Isles na fàttewoon suñu jigéen ñi amal na ay takaayu rafet yoo xam ne bari qualité la def. Ethnic Isles di leen yëgal ne am nañ delivery service sa Gambia, di leen yóbbu seen bagage ba sa bunti kër, ñu koy woyee door to door service si anam bu wóor te doo si son. waaw kooku Ethnic Isles ba tey Ethnic Isles nee na pour jokkoo ak ñoom dem leen si www.ethnicisles.com. Ethnic Isles bu ngeen bëggee xam lu wóor jokkoo leen ak suñu liggéeykat yu xarañee ñu tontu leen si nu mu gën a gaawee. Ethnic Isles.